everyone. This is Tamika Peters, President and CEO of Grow Your Nonprofit, where we help startups small and stagnant nonprofits grow through fundraising strategies, strategic planning, and so much more. Guys, today you're in for a treat. We have a great topic, the importance of donor retention, with Grow Your Nonprofit consultant, Chris Pulkrabek. She will be leading the conversation and I'll be chiming in. So let's get started.
Great.
So as you know, Grow Your Nonprofit, we've been around for over 11 years and we help start up small and stagnant nonprofits with strategic planning and everything in between. We believe in running your nonprofit like a business with core values. We're committed to our clients' integrity, transparency, and confidentiality. This is our mission and our vision. This is our Rockstars team. So let's get right into it. Chris, will you take this one? This is a report from Giving USA.
Yeah, so I've been reading a lot from Giving USA, and every year they do a report on fundraising trends. And this really stood out to me, and so that's why I wanted to share this topic, is that over the past decade, there's been a steady decline in the number of people giving to nonprofits. That's alarming. I mean, 10 years, that's a long time. So it's not just pandemic, right? We can't blame everything on the pandemic. And although individuals still are the largest source of donations in 2023, it was $374 billion, but the number of donors only grew by 1.6%, and adjusted for inflation actually fell by 2.4%, or the number of gifts. And so that's alarming. That's a trend that we don't want to see. I mean, falling by 2.4% in just 1 year, and then having this steady decline over 10 years is really why Giving USA is saying, okay, nonprofit organizations, you need to do a better job of stewarding your donors, engaging your donors, building relationships with your donors, because this is why they're falling off and not as many people are giving. Of course, the pandemic did affect it. Inflation affects giving. But we really, if we are good stewards to our donors, we really have a better chance of having long-term sustainability with funding and with them. So, Tamika, you can go to the next slide unless you had something to add.
No, I just want to say that donor stewardship, I can't say that enough. I just have an example recently donating last month to a nonprofit. It wasn't a large amount, but it was a significant amount. And I didn't receive a thank you letter, a thank you email. And I was actually really shocked because I actually reached out to them and I offered them a discount, because I also do own a restaurant. I offered them a discount for their members and no thank you note. So will I be given to that organization? Probably not. And nonprofit world is very competitive, because if you look on the IRS's website, you could see how many nonprofits are in the country. You could narrow it down by state. You could narrow it down by county. So it's very competitive. There are new nonprofits being formed every day, if you will. So it's a very competitive environment. So it's actually cheaper to steward your donor. Yes, it takes a little bit more time, but I know a lot of nonprofits like to focus on events. But if you focus on that donor, those individual donors, it's just going to make a much more of a huge impact keeping those donors, because later on, we'll talk about legacy giving, planned giving, which can make an impact as well.
Right. And actually, I have a story that just happened recently as well. I'm a legacy donor to an organization, and I was at a meeting, and one of the staff people were there. I haven't heard from them since before the pandemic. I mean, I get the email, update, but no personal outreach, no nothing. And I'm like, you need to be talking to me. I have you in my state plans. Oh, that's right. So I'm going to go and get a tour of some of their new space that they have coming up. But, we shouldn't have to ask our nonprofit organizations to reach out to us and stay connected to us. That's our role as nonprofit professionals. So again, we talked about the cost effectiveness a little bit. It costs a lot more money to get new donors than it does to retain your current donors. And so you're saving, we'll go in another slide a little bit further, you'll see how much more expensive it is to get new donors. And so spending a little bit of time every day, I say, to call a donor, send an email to a donor, thanking them, letting them know something that's new or something that you saw or heard. I used to work at a science museum, and I'm like, you know what? Today I saw these kids come in and look up at this big dinosaur, and it was so cool. I just wanted to share how much impact you have because you helped bring that dinosaur to our facility. So, just the little touches are really important. It helps you have stable funding through sustained revenue, keeping those relationships going, those donors close to you, understanding the impact that they're having is going to compel them to want to give more and give more often, perhaps. Maybe become monthly donors, because they really care and they see the impact of their dollars, creating those strong relationships by staying in contact with them, letting them know what's happening, even if it's something bad, like, oh, we had to take a different direction because of this, and this. Being honest and transparent with them builds that trust. And then they're going to share with their friends and family members about your organization, what your mission is, why they support your mission, potentially getting more funders for your mission. And then it helps you have greater organizational impact in your community. So your mission is to find a better cure for cancer. Well, by having more funders, being true to your funders, paying attention to your funders, you're going to be able to maintain those and increase those dollars and have greater impact on finding that cure for cancer, for example.
Mm-hmm. And with your donor management software, whatever you use, there's a feature that's like moves management, where you could choose to track if your donor has a birthday or anniversary or special occasion. If you guys are friends on Facebook, or you're able to follow them, maybe they had something special happen. Just picking up that phone, or even text messages. Text messages, 100% of, I would say, let's say 99.9% of people see their text messages and respond more so than email. So having those systems in place and creating that, if you're a development director, having the calendar for the month before you go into that new month, have your calendar for the month. Maybe you set a goal of contacting 30 donors for the month, and maybe that equates to one donor per day, or whatever that is, but some sort of touch, so that you're not always contacting them when it's time for an event or you want something from them. Just building a relationship. I'm going to say this again, and I know you guys are tired of me. You have to date your donors. So dating your donors just meaning keeping in constant contact with them, knowing their birthday, knowing about them, knowing if they have grandchildren, if they have children, if there was a life-changing event, goes a long way. I know when I was executive director of a particular organization, we had a donor who donated $25,000. And every chance I get, whether it was a video email or a text message of a participant who was gracious, and I had them look in the camera and say their name, only the first name, and thank them for the gifts. And that donor called me and said, wow, no one's ever done that to me before. And he just stayed a donor because he was just elated about that.
Yeah, and here again, I said the retention rates, first-time donors, only about 45% of your first-time donors are going to become repeat donors. And it costs 5 times more on average to get a new donor, whereas your repeat donors account for about 60% of your database. I mean, you'd have to go into your own database and, of course, analyze yourself. But the reason why they stay is they're engaged and they get personal attention. So it's not just, like I said, the one organization that I'm a legacy donor to, their monthly newsletter, that's not personal. It might say Dear Chris at the top, but I know that they didn't write Dear Chris, right? It's just all automatically generated. So having them pick up the phone and say, hey, we just finished this wing. We'd love for you to come and see it. That is engaging me, or letting me know that they're doing that, right? I didn't even know that they were expanding. So really engaging those donors. Penelope Burke is an author out of Canada, and she has a donor-centered fundraising book, and it talks about how, like you said, Tamika, it's rare for somebody to get that personalized attention. People are just used to, okay, every year I get my annual ask, and yeah, I might care about this organization, I'm going to give, but I'm still going to give it the same amount most often. But if I'm getting a call from Tamika saying, hey, great job, hey, happy birthday, I'm probably going to be compelled to give a little bit more, especially if I understand the true impact that my dollars are having.
And not only that, I know that some organizations they, like, for example, if someone's giving $5, $10, $25, that doesn't trigger a thank you note, which is bizarre to me. They tend to be more focused on, say, donors who give $500 or $1,000 and up. Guess what, guys? Donors will test you. I've had a donor test me before with $5 and still treated them like they were $1,000,000, and they ultimately became a legacy donor. So don't discount those $5 and $10 and send them a thank you note. Even if it's via email, send them a thank you note acknowledging their gifts. Treat them like gold, because you just never know if they're testing you. So I always say nonprofit is just like a business. The only difference is its tax exemption status. Owning a for-profit business, particularly a restaurant, it's the same principle. When the patrons are eating at my restaurant, I walk around and I ask them, how do they like their food? How did they hear about us? And they are just elated with that. And then I get to know their name. I ask what their name is, and I try to relate it to like a celebrity so I remember. So when next time they come in, I remember their name, they're just excited. And guess what? They're looking for me. And now I see that they're coming back with their spouses. They're coming back with their friends. Word of mouth, you just can't get enough word of mouth. You're more likely to get a donation or a new customer through word of mouth than through advertising. And it's the same principle, running your nonprofit like a business, treating them like their goal. It goes a long way, because not a lot of people do that, and you'll stand out from the crowd. And as you know, it's a very competitive environment, the nonprofit world.
Yeah, so one idea that we did at an organization I worked at, and I know a lot of organizations do this, is a new donor welcome series. And so, excuse me, you have 3 to 5 touches after a new donor comes on board. And you don't have to do all this work yourself. You can engage your board members and other volunteers, leaders of different programs, maybe that the donor is donating to. You have that leader. Just send a quick note. Or in some cases, we would, at a hospital I worked at, we had grateful patients who would make gifts. And we would have a thank you note already. We'd go to, in this case, it was hospice, and we'd have the hospice provider sign it. So all they had to do, it took them like 2 seconds, right? And then we shipped it off to the donor. And so having that warm welcome to your community, to your family, expressing your gratitude, like Tamika said, sharing your impact and using visuals, like she said, she had a participant, and, just saying thank you. You can have photos where you just say, James really appreciated camp this year, and you made this happen. You helped make this happen. And so visuals are very important. And then inviting them for further engagement to events, to tours, to volunteer for your organization. Just really letting them know that they're valued, keeping them informed and keeping them inspired through like your excitement. Like, you have passion for your organization. That's why you work for the organizations that you do. And you sharing that passion and your excitement. I mean, I have friends who became donors of organizations I worked at because I'm so excited about the work that I did for them. And so would share the impact, and, over a glass of wine, hey, how do I get involved in that? I want to donate. I care about that. I even had one of my travel agents, he's like, what do you do for a living again? And so I told him, and he and his wife became a legacy donor, and so, and then a donor to another organization that I volunteered for, just by hearing my excitement. So really, I loved starting my days with outreach to donors. I mean, what a great thing to do. Pick up the phone or shoot an email or a text. Hey, thinking about you. I hope you're having a great day. Or, like Tamika said, sending a happy birthday note. It's a great way to start your day and end your day if you have that time. And then all that other stuff, the call reports and all that kind of stuff is middle of the day, but ending or starting your day with a donor outreach. That's why we do what we do, right? It's about the donors and creating that joy and happiness for them.
And just going back to that principle of nonprofit as a business and running it like a business, I just want to provide an example, not to get political at all, but just looking at just the Lee County Sheriff, just how that sheriff, I mean, it's a little different. His face is everywhere. He's in the community. They have an ice cream response team in which we're actually partnering with them next month to host an event. They partner with nonprofits. They donate to nonprofits. They're very engaging. Now they're I wouldn't say they're donors, but their client base is a little different. But I just want to say just this, how that particular office like markets and is involved in the community and is engaging, you know what's going on. I think it's a good example for nonprofits or and businesses to model by that. Just really being out there and being aware of like this is what we do, and it's a really great thing. And then what a great way to get your board members involved. I always hear nonprofits saying, "Oh, our board members, they're not involved. They don't do anything. They don't donate." Well, with a good strategic plan, with a good board orientation, with a good board retreat, with good board ongoing board training, and that'll make a difference. You have your board sign your annual commitment form where they're responsible for giving and leveraging your organization. And as part of that could be once a month they have to call one donor or write one letter or pick up the phone. Also giving, that's an automatic requirement, even if it's $1. So when you write grants, you can say 100% of your board gives. A lot of times, I blame the nonprofit because if you're not training your board, you're not orientating them, you're not letting them know before they even come on board, if you will, they know what their responsibilities are and they're vetted. It makes a huge difference.
So these are some other strategies. We've talked about several, but based on the donor type. So we have individual, major, foundation, and corporate, and we will be sharing the slide deck. And so you'll have this information. But again, just personal connections, storytelling, talking about the impact, those thank you notes, those updates on a regular basis. For your major donors, it's a little bit more personalized. Really, you need to have a stewardship plan for all of your donors and make that personal. If I don't like going to galas, don't invite me to your gala. Invite me to sit down with a leader, invite me to a tour. Having those individual meetings is coffee, and you can do this now via Zoom, right? We're all used to the Zoom world and having touches, and you can say, hey, our CEO would love to have a coffee chat with 5 donors over Zoom. And then there's some fun things you can do. You can deliver, a good coffee from your community. I did wine tastings with some donors. And so I would deliver the bottle of wine to their home, and this was during COVID when we couldn't meet. So I'd set it on their doorstep and there'd be wine and cheese and we would have an event that evening. So there's really creative things you can do and to involve them in their decision making. So the example I gave of the organization that I hadn't heard from since pre-COVID, and I'm a legacy donor, they know one of my areas of expertise is plan giving, or they would know if they would ask me. And I care about this hospital. And so why not invite me to help you strategize ways to involve donors in legacy giving, sharing my story. And so then with foundations, they need those impact reports, and doing those impact reports early, putting them on your calendar, talking about your outcomes, your progress updates, being transparent with them. If something isn't going right, letting them know, hey, we're running into a roadblock here. This is what we're going to do. This is our other plan. Construction has slowed down, it's not going to be done on the deadline, but keeping them aware of what's happening is very, very important. And then foundations, really, it's not date driven. I'm sorry. We do date our donors, but not our foundations. It's data driven. So they really want to have those numbers. And so working with your CFO and finance committees on getting them the hard time number, or, the real time numbers of this many people have been impacted by the dollars that you raise. And then corporate, developing those partnerships. A lot of corporations are very socially responsible in their community. They want their employees engaged. So having volunteer days, volunteer opportunities with their employees, or going and providing an update. Again, working at a hospital, we would talk about brains, different Alzheimer's disease, and we'd go and do a topic on that, or aging healthy at the corporation that was a funder of ours. Inviting them to be sponsor and doing joint events with them as well is a good way to bring them on as your partners. So if you're doing a food drive, inviting your corporate partners to be a part of that food drive with you, and then they get the recognition for being socially responsible in their communities.
And also, I like to say, when we talk about corporate partnerships, I think a lot of nonprofits, especially when they're new or they're building their board, I think they overlook corporations, because corporations, if you can get them on your board, guess what? They're probably going to be a donor. They're probably going to be a sponsor. And it's just going to be a lot easier and they have the connections in the community as well. So don't overlook corporate organizations serving on your board or being volunteers, especially they want to get involved around the holidays, like your Thanksgiving, if you have a turkey giveaway, around Christmas, if you're giving out toys or you're doing something in the community. And also, it's just a really great mix to have a diverse board. So when I'm looking at this was what we're talking about when we're talk about having diversity on the board. And when I work with especially new nonprofits or small nonprofits that are not growing, I always say, well, find an organization that's similar to yours and look on their website. See who's serving on their board. Oftentimes, if they have a newsletter, sign up for their newsletter. See who's giving. Oftentimes, they have at the bottom of their screen or on a scroll, thank you to our partners or thank you to our donors. Because if they gave to that organization and your organization is similar, perhaps there's an opportunity. So you go to their website, maybe they have a grant cycle. When it opens, maybe you sign up so you're notified. But if you want to be like a particular organization, let's just say United Way of the World, I mean, they do it right. Just see the types of people who serve on their board, see the types of companies that they're partners with, because obviously if they're involved with United Way, they're philanthropic, and just do your research and it just can really make a difference on your organization growing and become a sustainable nonprofit. And also just thinking about in the next 10 plus years when there's that wealth shift and your baby boomers are no longer here, the wealth has transferred over to their kids or their kids' kids. We need to start having those conversations and thinking about that, because the nonprofit world is going to look different because their children or their children's children may not be passionate about your cause. So what are you doing now? What strategies are you doing now to get the whole family involved and rallying around your organization and learning why grandma or grandpa is giving to this organization so that legacy can continue? Chris, fundraising, intelligence, and AI tools.
So we've got all different kinds of tools to help us with this. And so data analytics and AI. So with donor behavior, and I just put examples here of different tools that you can use, but there's multiple. So these are not the only ones. But for there I was on data again, data insights. Sorry about that. You can use Wealth Engine. I know. You can analyze, Wealth Engine can analyze your donor behavior. How often are they giving? Are they increasing their giving? What are they giving to? They can do something like Gravity can do predictive analytics. So who's at risk of lapsing? So Chris hasn't been giving for a year, 2 years, or she's not clicking on newsletters, or there's all different kinds of reports you can run. And, okay, we need to pay extra attention. So we retain her as a donor of ours. And so paying attention to your donor behavior, like Tamika said, that $5, $10 donor, if they've been giving $5 or $10 every month for a year, boy, they really are engaged with your organization, and you can bring them closer by reaching out to them. You can do a lot of personalization and engagement. There's one Virtuoso CRM. It gives a personalized donor journey. So what you can do is put in, when you want to reach out to these donors, and it will just be automated and it will do that. There's segmentation you can do in categorizing your donors on age, on interests, on capacity. And just because somebody has capacity of $10,000 doesn't mean that they only have capacity of $10,000, and it doesn't mean they're going to give you $10,000. So looking at that though can help you, so say you have, a database of 5,000 people. Well, who do you prioritize? Those long-time annual givers who have been consistent with your organization, and then those who have a higher capacity. So you might want to start focusing on. And then the automated stewardship, you can have, again, it put in your computer, in a system like Kindful, sending out those thank you notes automatically right away. So Tamika would have gotten a thank you note when that donation happened. So like when you're giving online, you get that automatic thank you note. But then still you need to have some personal connection too with new donors especially. And then there's all different kinds of donation confirmations, event details, volunteer opportunities that you can deliver to your donors. So again, it's making it easier for you. You don't have to be like always on top of it. You plan and do this in advance, and then your donors feel more seamless of you communicating with them. And then you can optimize campaigns through fundraising intelligent and AI tools. Something like Donor Perfect, they do real-time analysis of your donors, and they can give you what are their patterns, what are their trends, track their engagement. And this just really helps you, again, customize and personalize your communication strategies and retention strategies for your donors, so you keep them, so you don't have to keep finding new donors. It's important.
Yep.
You need to continuously feed the pipeline, but it's no good if you're always feeding the pipeline and you get a donor to give once or twice. It's a vicious cycle if you don't stay on top of retaining your donors.
Yeah, and I get it in the nonprofit world, especially as a development director or people in the fundraising field. They tend to change jobs every 2 to 3 years because obviously you want to make more money, and I get it. I was there too, and that could be sort of some of the issues of the donor engagement. If turnover, and then the next person, it takes probably 6 months to get acclimated, and now the donor, you have to build a relationship with them all over again. But if there are systems in place, the next person should be able to walk right in the door and pick up where the last person left off. And it takes time to input that information in. But once you have a strategic plan and you have a system in place, it just makes the flow easier when there is turnover.
Yeah, we used Razor's Edge at a couple of organizations I worked at. Blackbaud is the parent company, and they had this really neat tool that would analyze your donors' major gift likelihood and plan giving likelihood, and that really helped me segment my plan giving donors. And who do I, because I'm one person, I can't talk to everybody, but then this group would get this segment that had a very high likelihood of plan giving. And I don't know all the data that went into this, right? It was automatic. Somebody set up the program, but it was automatic. Then I knew, okay, I'm going to reach out to these guys with invites to meetings. I'm going to reach out to this group with a seminar on plan giving or legacy giving. I'm going to reach out to this segment. They're going to be, well, in my case, it was 70.5, but now it's 73. So they're going to have the required minimum distribution to take. So I would have personalized information that I would send to that group of people. And so, these tools can be really, really helpful in having you prioritize your work. And just, summing it all up, focusing on donor retention supported by robust strategies and advanced intelligent tools not only strengthens your relationship with existing donors, but also contributes to long-term sustainability of your organization, which is what we want. We're doing great work. We want to be around for a very, very long time so we can continue that great work in partnership with our donors.
Mm-hmm. And I always relate this back to for-profit business, but when it also made me think about your personal life. You should have a mission and a vision and core values for your personal self. You should have goals that you set for yourself. I personally have a vision board. I'm very goal-oriented, but what we're talking about is just not for nonprofit. It could be applied for-profit, your life, setting goals for yourself, writing them down, affirming them, and holding yourself accountable, doing something every day that gets you closer to your goal. You're just going to see a huge difference in everything, your personal and your professional life. So with that said, we'll open it up to questions. Danielle, do you have any questions before we wrap up at all?
So my organization, I work with 2 development directors, and I do a lot of the trends. I help with the events, some of the outreach. So bandwidth is a major concern, and always trying to really prioritize what's the greatest impact for our time. What would you recommend? Typically, each officer's profile has about 150 major donors, and then there's it's not ideal, but right now they each have about a little less than 300, about 200 and change mid-level donors. So what I've been trying to do is segment them based on interest, but it's a very arduous process. What would a recommendation be to kind of speed up that process and maybe help us in the future as far as just getting them more in groups that are in line and making that kind of whole process a little easier.
Yeah, well, it's great that you're looking at these different donor segments, because I think that is important. And yes, a development officer director only has so much bandwidth. And so when you're doing these events and you're inviting your major gift donors and your mid-level donors, maybe new donors, making sure that there's a follow-up strategy after the event, because just bringing them to the event and then you don't talk to them again, so is there where you can set up an opportunity to sign up for a tour at that event, and so some of these mid-level donors may come after the event. For the major donors, your top major donors, of course, you're going to be calling them, asking them for feedback on the event. Sending surveys is always a way for people to feel engaged and involved, and you can do that at any level, and that can be automated. You just need to have somebody, though, who reads the responses and then thanks the donor for sending the responses. I did that once, and I sent out a survey on planned giving, and I had so many responses. It was an e-survey that, I had to have other people on my team come in and help me analyze this, and a board member, because I didn't have the time to reach back out to everybody. That's a good problem to have, but it is. As far as, having different activities. So for mid-level, having, again, like group tours or group webinars where you're inviting them, where it's not so in-person individualized, because you don't have all that time. How many lunches can you go to in a week? 5, so that's only 5 donors. Inviting them to come in and meet with the CFO, the CEO, or a leader. There's a particular program that you want to highlight, inviting a small group to come in for that. Inviting a group who've been giving for a long time, 5+ years, to come to a planned giving seminar to learn about creative giving strategies in the future, because over 80% of an individual's wealth is tied up in their estate. They don't have the cash to give, so I'm not out making $1 million gifts right now out of my pocket, but you know what, when I'm gone, I can, and so it's really important to have those just little sprinkling, like the legacy fairy dust in this case, for people. Tamika, do you have other strategies for really trying to develop those portfolios and segment donors?
I say if you have, it sounds like you guys have, but maybe, I don't know, 2,000 donors total? More?
Membership has a lot, it's it's in the double digits of the thousand. It's development. It's the major donors are being overworked, so and I'm doing the analytics and looking at the donor behaviors and running the reports, but something I'd like to tap into is getting maybe extra time to kind of look at them and help feed that to the major donor officers and kind of help streamline that process. And there is a cloth where the mid-level is. And so,
I say if you could narrow down to maybe your top, I don't know, 500 or 300, and have your monthly calendar, because you have 12 months in the year, and have a strategy where there's some sort of something every day. And like Chris said, have one big thing, but also if you can that's where volunteers, it sounds like you really need some volunteers to really help you. And unfortunately you can't get to everyone, but the top, I would say, figure out a strategy to break that down. And if you get some interns to help you, and do more personalized, to say, if anyone who donates 10,000 and up, maybe they get more personal attention. And in the other group, maybe you do something like Chris said, maybe a Zoom, or you have some sort of something that's low cost at your facility where you have information in about the impact they're making, and maybe have 3 different levels of what type of engagement they have depending on what they do. But you're definitely going to need some help. And I know you're filtering that to your staff, but then they have a certain amount of capacity. But just further figuring out what those 3 tiers, what are you doing with those 3 tiers, and then getting help and volunteers to help. And that's where what areas where our board members, and that's probably going to be the higher level, what areas where our volunteers could help, and what areas where we can do more automation or more virtual, and then what areas where there's something like in season when they're here, maybe it's welcome back snowbirds or welcome back where you have just wine and cheese, or you just have some finger foods and something like that. But trying to segment it, and I get it. You guys, your nonprofit is a little different.
Yeah, it's an interesting structure. I do like getting the board involved, and I do like planned giving seminars, because when we do have, legacy gifts, they tend to be very large. And usually they're from people that we don't even expect. So I know the past team had done that. So maybe that's something that we really push forward with.
Yeah, and those are great. And then also just doing like a planned giving survey. And 3 to 5 questions. You can do these automated or not. Crescendo, I know, has a survey tool, and I'm sure a lot of other marketing companies do as well. But and then that helps you prioritize, right? Who responds? So they're interested, right? Even if they say no, not at this time, they're expressing an interest in taking the time to engage with you. And so that helps lift people up higher. So the people who respond, yes, I'd like more information about planned giving, or I've included you in my estate. To get a phone call right away, right? But the others then say, oh, we're hosting a planned giving seminar, please join us, and have it be a virtual option, because people are just so busy and are used to not having to battle traffic and do things online now. So, and I would partner with a financial advisor or an estate attorney, and then one of your staff people, or Tamika and I are available to do things like this as well. Where we can partner, but I really, you need to have a financial advisor or a estate planning attorney as well. And so if you have one that's a board member, somebody in your community you want to get closer to, call them up and say, hey, would you please, do a planned giving seminar for our organization?
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. And
your contacts, I'd have to talk to them and see what they're interested as far as events go, but I think that would be very nice.
Yeah. And the last thing I like to share, Danielle, that goes back to having, before your new fiscal year begins, having an annual calendar planning, so that okay, every November, the snowbirds are back, November, and maybe, I don't know, March, you have a planned giving or legacy or something, and make it like fun, because educational is great because you'll end up, getting a gift. But if you have your calendar, you already know that you're going to do this and on this day and on this day and this year. And then if you have it regularly every year, they'll get used to that. And even if they don't attend, subliminally, they're thinking about I don't have a will. I don't have a trust. I need to start thinking about my legacy, because I don't want the courts to decide and have my estates tied up in probate, and the attorneys end up winning. So, because when I was at a particular organization, we actually had one. We had our executive director, it was a panel discussion. We had a donor who was leaving a legacy gift, and we had an estate planning attorney. And just from that, we had it in the morning. We had coffee and donuts. It was very cheap. I think we probably were notified of 3 gifts just from that 1.5 hour presentation. And it just really created a buzz, and people started to talk about it. And we started doing videos of people who were leaving gifts and why they were leaving gifts. You could add that as part of your newsletter, your e-newsletter. But just planning and getting that there, and then maybe in the summer when you have interns or you have students, these are great projects to have them help plan, or even the board members, because while they're planning it, they're thinking about, the legacy gift and, what they want to do, and talk about donor engagement and talk about, planting seeds.
Yeah. And you gave us a lot of good ideas. Some we're already doing, but I think there's some that we can definitely expand upon, and getting the rest of the board, the interns involved, really making it like a cultural thing in the whole organization.
I like that. I like that you said a cultural shift. Yeah, cultural shift. And if you guys have a strategic plan, as you know, a strategic plan is a living document. That's where one of the things I would put in the fundraising category as one of your goals, the legacy giving, and then okay, what does that entail? Host 2 events per year, and coffee and donuts, or you can do one virtual and one in person. So just the planning, it makes a huge difference. As a matter of fact, our next month we would be talking about strategic planning, and in our November boot camp we'll be talking about campaign planning, and December is gearing up for 2025 and wrapping up 2024. So we hope that you'll register and spread the word. So thank you so much, Danielle, for attending.
Thank you both for very informative presentation. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Nice to meet you, and best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Same to you both.
All right. Okay. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Don't walk away. Don't walk away. You never walk away before we get it.